deep in the heart of Texas.
We're in the business of winning.
Don't bet against me.
I don't bet anyway.
Lose your life.
What's up, everyone? I wanted to come on here and give a sort of quick take about the enhanced games. Some people, I think a lot of the takeaways are not quite getting to the heart of the issue, and it's been irking me a little bit. So the enhanced games, for those who don't know, is supposed to be a kind of free-for-all, human spectacle in sport where we let the athletes take PEDs or steroids, whatever they seem, whatever they may deem to be appropriate for their particular event or sport. And they were supposed to break all these world records, and it was going to be, again, like a human spectacle. And it ended up being an objective bust, right? Even though I don't quite agree with the takeaways people are coming away with, it was an objective bust, right? Only one person broke a world record. It was a female swimmer in the 50-meter freestyle, I believe. And that was it, right? So it was definitely an objective bust. However, because of this, the takeaway has been to kind of hand wave away steroids or PEDs in a way. And I think it's a little bit of a cope, or people are kind of being gullible, or they do know it and they don't want to admit it. And I think the cope is this, or being gullible is this, is the way that they are kind of hand waving away this event. To me, sounds like they kind of want to hand wave away the effects of steroids, or perhaps the prevalence of steroids. And they're kind of saying, looking at this event, saying, look at this failure. Look at all these people who did not break world records, and they are supposed to be, quote unquote, enhanced. As if other athletes aren't. That's very key, right? Which is kind of my point I'll get to here in a second. And because of this, that means their sport or their event or their memories of whatever they saw at the Olympics one year, or their favorite athlete, etc., this means that they are somehow untainted. I think that's the cope. That's the implication of what people are doing right now, is to kind of say, see, this kind of proves that the real pros, the real Olympics, the real events, of the world are untainted, and those guys are they're actually such better athletes that they are actually, steroid free or PED free, and they're still breaking world records, while these guys are juiced up and they're not. That, I think, is the cope. That's the gullible part. And I think they do this because they want their sport or athlete to be untainted in a way. And again, I think that is a bit of a cope. And here's what the correct takeaway is, in my opinion. Here's how I would put it. The enhanced games were second-rate athletes on steroids and PEDs trying to beat records that were set by first-rate athletes on PEDs and steroids. We have already seen the best of the best all around the world. Let's just take the last 30 to 40 years, right? As science has gotten better and the prevalence of what people are able to take and find, let's just take like the last 50 years, right? Science has just continuously gotten better with PEDs and performance enhancers, and what to take for this, what to take for that, recovery, leading up to how do I beat the test, etc., right? And so to think that on this particular day, these guys didn't break the record, and that means that other athletes are not on performance enhancers, that is incorrect, right? If that's what you're trying to imply, along with the, well, my whatever I enjoy in sports and athletes is untainted, I think you're wrong. I think that's you being gullible and naive about the prevalence of PEDs and steroids in the absolute top level of sports. And so I've done the video on More Plates, More Dates, talking about the LeBron James steroid allegations. And, my kind of takeaway is that I think at the top levels, essentially everybody's on something. Let's just go higher than Adderall, right? We're talking like steroids, HGH, EPOs, which are for, anything for like stamina too, things like that. I think to think that Barry Bonds or Mark McGwire did not set the home run record on steroids, I think you're fooling yourself. To think that MMA fighters are not on steroids or some kind of performance enhancer, again, EPOs, I think you're fooling yourself. To think that Usain Bolt wasn't on some kind of performance enhancer, I think you're fooling yourself, right? All of these things, right? To think that Lance Armstrong was the only guy on EPOs in the Tour de France, and that's the only that's the only reason he won all those times, is because of those EPOs that he was on, and that's why he beat everybody, right? That is the wrong take here. That is it's like we're on the same side of the coin, or we're on the same coin but just different sides. The takeaway is that they did not break records because steroids don't matter. They did not break records because we have already seen hundreds of thousands of attempts at world records from the best athletes already who are on things, who are on PEDs, EPOs, steroids, and they have already taken hundreds and thousands of stabs at running the 100-meter the fastest, at throwing the shot put the hardest, at swimming the 100-meter butterfly or whatever the fastest, right? We've already seen the best athletes in the world who again have the best medicine, the best enhancers, however you want to put it, the best doctors, the best facilities. We've already seen them attempt and break world records. If we even you just go the last 10 years, think about how many attempts that is. That's the real takeaway. The real takeaway, maybe there's something to be said that if you get too jacked, you become a little too dense or slow or something like that. Perhaps, maybe. But that's not really what people are saying. The implication of what people are saying is that, it's a way to hand wave away PEDs and steroids, I think, to cope that they're not as prevalent as they are. If you think guys in the NFL aren't on something, you're crazy. Like, you're just absolutely crazy. If you think professional athletes are not on some kind of performance enhancers, right? And I'll get to the drug testing as well, just real quick, a little personal anecdote, but it is important, right? I knew a guy, played at a very high level, rubbed elbows with guys in the NBA, and he says essentially everyone smokes, right? Everyone smokes weed just about, you know, essentially how he put it. He put it that bluntly, right? That's all I'm going to say. And to think that nobody's getting busted for smoking, right? It's because if you get caught, it's because you deserve to get caught, right? It's because you have no self-control to know when the test is coming. They tell you, or the time frame, when you can and can't, right? And that is very much the same way in leading up to fights and sporting events, right? I think about Israel Adesanya with the gyno on his chest, on his nipple, right? He's had that, I think, once or twice, if you know anything about steroids and stuff, right? And then it was just gone, correct? So, it's just one of those things where you kind of either want to just understand what's going on, or you're kind of keeping your head in the sand, right? This is not high school football. This is not junior high basketball, right? Once you realize, I think, in high school that you have the ability to go to college and maybe you have big aspirations or you are that skilled, people will do a lot of things to get to the next level. And that goes for everything in life, just about, right? There are some people who are willing to go the extra mile, and in sports, when you're already dealing with competitive people and the way that operates, right? Almost everyone's on something, right? The stakes are so high, and the game's really not that hard to get around and beat, right? So that's my 2 cents on the video, or on the enhanced games, is that it is not that steroids don't matter or PEDs don't matter, or that it proves your guy's untainted, your sport's untainted, right? The takeaway is that everyone's already on PEDs and steroids. That's why really no records were broken. And we've seen thousands upon thousands of attempts just in recent history, or the past year, or even this year, of people who are already doing that, right, for their very specific sport. But they are the best at what they do already, with the performance enhancers, not without them, not because they don't matter. That's the correct take, right? And so I think there's a lot of people coping that they're pure, they're clean, their guy's untainted, their field of sport is untainted, or that makes them feel better about the guys they rooted for as kids, or what have you, right? So that's my takeaway. That's my video. I'll see you guys on the next one.